All right, everybody, so we're going to go over substitution and elimination today. First two questions are going to focus on substitution, so we are going to start there. So for the first question, we have y by itself. So anytime that you have a variable that is completely by itself, you are ready to plug in. So we're going to see this y in the second equation, we get to plug in for our first y. So we have 7x minus y equals 12, and in the place of y, we get to put in what is equal to, which here is negative 5. So two negatives cancel out to make a positive. And then from here we can subtract. And then after that we can divide. The final answer of x is equal to positive 1. For our second equation, again, we're seeing the same thing. We have an x totally by itself, so because of that, we are allowed to plug in. So we have x minus 2y equals 8, and in the place of this x, we get to put in 5 minus y. So nice set of parentheses here. We end up with negative y and negative 2y as our like terms, so we can put these two like terms together. Can subtract 5 from both sides. And we can divide to get our final answer. So one thing that I actually forgot from the first question, but I don't want to forget here, and go back and fix it for the first one, is your answers are always going to have an x and a y value. So in this case, we solve for y equals negative 1, but now it's time to go back and make sure that we understand what x is. So for this question, if we have x equals 5 minus y, we're going to take that y value we just solved for, we're going to plug it in. So we'll end up with x equals 6. So our final answer has x equals 6 and y equals negative 1. You can also write it as 6 comma negative 1, or x comma y. Up top, we had already identified y equals negative 5 in the original, but we still need to write that. And again, we can write it as defining x and y individually, or we can put them in an ordered pair. All right, so for our third question, we're going to move into a new style of solving what happens basically when we don't have what we're looking at. We don't have an individual variable to plug in. So actually skipping down to number 4 might be a better place to start. So the first step is we want to line up our x's, line up our y's, and line up our equal signs, and line up our numbers. So all of these things need to be lined up in order to proceed. If they are, we have x matches with x, y with y, equals with equals, number with number, then we are ready to move into elimination. So if you have exact opposites, so positive 2 and minus 2, 2 minus 2 is 0. They do cancel out. So that is good for us here because we've eliminated the y variable. A match, though, minus x and minus x, that's the same thing. It does not eliminate. Minus 1 is actually negative 2. Check your calculator if you're not sure. Equal sign stays. Minus 13 and positive 11 turns into negative 2. So we don't want to view these as addition or subtraction. We just want to view them as combining. So if it's positive and a positive, it's a positive answer. Again, just viewing these as putting them together with what they are. So not actually as always addition, not always subtraction. So solving this equation now, minus 2x equals negative 2. We can divide both sides by negative 2 and get an answer of x equals positive 1. Just like before, we still need to go back and plug in though. So we can have negative x plus 2y equals negative 13. Plug in that positive one that we just solved for. And from there, we are solving our equation. So adding 1 to both sides, dividing by 2, y equals negative 6. So our full answer, x comma y answer, is 1 comma negative 6. For our equation above, what happens when we line these things up, we're going to see is that nothing actually eliminates. 2 and 5 go together to make 7, 7 and 4 go together to make 3. So the problem here is that we don't actually have something that we can cross out, so we need to make it so that we do. So when we're looking at this equation, what we're going to have to see is what is something that we can multiply by that would give us something that eliminates. So in this case, 2 times something to get negative 5, 7 times something to get negative 4, it's a tricky question. So there's 2 different ways that we can approach this. So we can view this as 2 times what gives us negative 5, and we can multiply by a decimal. Or we are allowed to multiply both equations. So a trick for this is if you have both equations here, so we have the top one and the bottom one, we can multiply them by each other. So the top one has 5x, we can multiply that one by 5. The exact opposite of that, we have 2x on top, so we can put that on the bottom here and get 2. And we just have to make one of them negative. So maybe we can make the bottom one negative, we can make it 2. So from here, we are distributing in, and we're going to get 2 new equations after we distribute in. So 10x, 35y, and then 5 times 34. I need my calculator for that, make sure I don't make a mistake. And up with 170. And then for the bottom on negative 10x, positive 8, and then positive 2. So now that we've done this, everything's lined up, and now we see that 10 and negative 10 go together to cancel out. So we end up with 43 equal 172, and then we can divide both sides by 43 to get y equals 4. So a little bit of work there, but a nice trick for you to learn before starting the skill assessment is that you can always multiply with the first equation by the second one, and vice versa, as long as one of them's negative. And after doing that, a little bit of extra work, but it'll always work for you. You can get the answer you're looking for. All right, so time to plug back in. We have y equals 4, so we want to pop that in. So I'm going to put 2x plus 28 equals 34. Subtract 28. We get 2x equals 6. We get x equals 3. So full xy final answer. 3, 4, x, y. All right, hopefully that helps. A lot of solving today. Just be careful with those negatives and those operations. Your calculator is your friend, so you should definitely use it. As always, thanks for watching, and good luck.